Tom, it's not just Nvidia. Basically, you look at anything that had been linked to AI here, and they all seem to be under pressure. What's happening?
There have been so many pent-up expectations for this for these stocks. There's a lot of bullishness for AI. Anything associated with AI, even if you just mention it on a call, it resulted in a rally in your stock in the last several months. The stocks have just been going through the roof. So I think what happens now is, in light of ASML and Taiwan Semi TSMC earlier this week, people are bringing a little bit more scrutiny to the AI story. Is it as good? Is it as lasting as everyone thought it would be, as we expected it to be? It's not this miracle drug, after all, and that's what people are wondering. That what they're going to look at next week, they're going to scrutinize every number that these Magnificent Seven release, and every comment out of their CEOs and their CFOs to figure out, is this real? Is AI as good, as real, as lasting as we had been expecting? And I think there's going to be a lot of skepticism.
And of course, I'm sure a lot of these CEOs or their communications team are kind of going over their planned remarks and revisiting what they can say to reassure investors. What will you and your team be listening for to determine whether this AI story is more hype or more substance?
Are the products changing? Are you using AI in a tangible way to change your product? Is it changing for the end user, whether that's the consumer, whether that's the business? Are people really buying your AI story, or is this just some magic fairy dust you're trying to sprinkle on your results? That's the question that everybody is going to be asking into next week.
It's great to see you. As always, there is nearly no one I would rather speak to on semiconductors than you. So we got Nvidia down 9% today.
Yeah.
What the heck is going on?
I think with Nvidia, it's probably just Supermicro dragging the whole semi space down, and the AI names are getting hit worse. They didn't say anything. They don't report earnings for another month, frankly. I don't think it's more than that. But I mean, if you look at the industry as a whole, you're right. Things are starting to move more into a correction phase. We had reports from players like ASML and TSMC. You have to remember, outside of AI is very strong right now. The rest of the semi industry this year is not all that great, right? PCs and smartphones, they've probably hit bottom. I don't think they're getting any worse, but they're not necessarily getting a ton better right now. Data center spending outside of AI is actually quite weak. Server CPUs and networking and that sort of thing is quite weak. Industrial end markets have been very weak. Automotive, TSMC called this out. Automotive is now starting to roll over potentially. And so I think just broadly for the industry, especially given how strong it was last year, it was very strong year to date until recently. Valuations in the sector have been very high as the stocks have held up very well amid estimate cuts. I mean, I guess part of me is not incredibly surprised that things are taking a little bit of a breather as we get ready for earnings, which kicks off in a big way next week.
As of the time of this video, Nvidia stock is down 10%, but it's still up around 60% year to date, and over 180% for the past year. Many Nvidia stock investors thought the company was unstoppable during the AI boom and kept loading up on shares, sending the stock higher and higher. But right now, these investors are getting extremely worried. In the midst of stiffing market conditions, Nvidia stock appears to be taking a nosedive, and this has left investors with lots of questions and very little answers. Despite this, there is still a lot of bullish sentiments around the stock, and that's what we're going to get into right now to determine if Nvidia investors should be worried about what's going on or not. But before we do that, if you want to keep up with Nvidia's latest updates and keep up with the stock market's latest news, you can follow our Twitter account. We post multiple times daily about the biggest changes and catalysts in the market, so click the follow button if you don't want to miss the newest market updates. Now, back to today's video.
Nvidia, though, of course, doesn't report for a while until later in May. And you still have a $1,000 price target on Nvidia. Nvidia has sort of successfully portrayed itself as now separate from the semi-cycle, in the different areas that you were discussing.
Yeah.
Is that right? Is that the right way still to think about it?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that 80% of the revenue is data center like slash AI. And look, I know like it's not pretty out there today, but so far most of the signs are suggesting that AI spending is still very strong, right? I mean, again, I guess people are getting nervous from some of these. They wanted to see a positive pre for some of these names, right? But I mean, in general, the spending is strong. Even guys like TSMC like talked about AI spending like holding up. I think they even extended their view for how far out they thought it would grow. So that market seems well. And like I said, data centers for Nvidia is 75 or 80% of their total revenues right now. So they are like sort of like uniquely concentrated in that market. The stock even is not even that expensive. I mean, if the current numbers are anywhere close, it's low 30s, like multiple, like on sort of like a calendar 25 like kind of earnings number. Like it's not even that expensive. It's way cheaper than it was actually before the run. I've actually made this point maybe with you guys before. As the stock has gone up a ton. By the stock is still up something like 50 or 60% year to date, even after today. Like it's still up a ton. The estimates have gone up like far more than the stock has even gone up, and the multiple has actually come down a lot. It's actually very, very inexpensive. If the numbers are any close to being correct. Now that's clearly the fear, right? I mean, people are nervous for a stock like Nvidia that just the numbers have gone up so much, so quickly that sustainability is a question, and I get it. And like you sort of see this stuff sometimes with these. I'm not terribly worried about it this year. I'm not even really worried about it next year. 2026, I guess we'll see. I'm also very bullish though long term on the opportunity again for them. I still think in 5 years or 10 years. We'll be talking about numbers that are materially higher than what we're talking about today. Like, what does it look like in 2 years? I'm not sure. I don't think anybody knows. But at least for now, I think the trajectory for them should hold up. I think so.
Nvidia has had a good run lately. Its stock price has soared in recent years, fueled by the ever-growing demand for powerful chips that help power AI technologies. But even the smoothest rides can hit a bump. Lately, there's been some chatter that might have investors rethinking their Nvidia positions. For example, there's a slowdown in the crypto market currently, with the market cap recently dropping by $400 billion in just 1 week, and this could be attributed to delayed rate cuts or even geopolitical tensions around the world. Any hit to the crypto market would naturally hurt Nvidia because companies rely heavily on its chips for mining. On top of that, there's always the looming threat of new competition or even a shift in consumer preferences.
How stoic do you need to be? How much do I need to believe that the earnings will trump emotional volatility in this market? Good morning.
Great to be. Yeah, I mean, like, look, it comes down to earnings. And I think the next few weeks, this is a get out the popcorn moment for tech. And you're going to see chips, AI revolution, enterprise, consumer on the digital side, I think Google, Meta, and others. I think this is really going to be a flex the muscles moment for tech. So my view is, no doubt, white knuckles, many yelling fire in a crowded theater on tech. I think we sit here 4 or 6 weeks from now, look at this more of a golden buying opportunity rather than the time that was something more structural.
And you think the earnings are going to show up. And I got to say, given that Nvidia's 11.5% lower for the top, I mean, if you are bullish on tech and you're expecting earnings to turn out, this seems like an incredible opportunity.
Look, our view, and over 25 years, hand-holding, it's through the choppiness and the volatility. That's why all the work we do traveling around the world in Asia, understanding what the supply chain looks like, what demand is. And I think, look, a few quarters ago, it was choppier in terms of enterprise and what we saw in terms of overall spending. But now, the monetization of that AI revolution, it's happening. And it's not just about Godfather of AI, Jensen and Nvidia, and of course what Redmond and Nadella are doing. Now it's everyone else. You look at what's going to be happening with Palantir, Google, Amazon. I think the rest of software names like MongoDB, Salesforce, and others.
Wedbush's Dan Ives recently called Nvidia's CEO, Jensen Huang, the godfather of AI, and he might just be right. Nvidia's role in the AI boom added an extra $1 trillion to its market cap in just a few months, and it's been dominating the AI chips market with more than 90% market share. However, some might say that everything is about to turn around for Nvidia, and we're going to find out what this means. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Investocracy. No one can deny that Nvidia's AI chips are extremely impressive, which is why they're always in high demand and very hard to get. For this reason, the company's customers aren't keen on relying on a single source. Hardware companies such as Dell Technologies and Lenovo can't get enough Nvidia chips to meet customer demand, and that is why they look for alternatives like AMD and Intel. Similarly, cloud providers like Amazon and Google want more options so badly that they are designing their own chips. But while this is a proper business strategy for these companies, it can be a big threat for Nvidia. Fortunately for Nvidia investors, there isn't really a big problem with the company that's making its stock crashing. Rather, there are several reasons why Nvidia is currently trading at a low price, and none of them actually has to do with the company itself. For starters, it was a challenging week for the entire market following news of escalating tensions between Israel and Iran, which is raising concerns among investors, given the potential disruptions to business supply chains, especially in the Middle East. Also, there are ongoing inflation worries after the March 2024 Consumer Price Index revealed inflation came in slightly hotter than expected, accompanied with the Federal Reserve delaying the rate cuts. Not only that, but ASML reporting worse than expected earnings caused many semiconductor stocks to tank, simply because ASML is the company that makes the tools these companies, including Nvidia, use to make their chips. Investors saw ASML having bad earnings as confirmation that its chipmaker clients are taking it slow and not racing to push out new chip technologies, which must have contributed to the recent sell-off of these companies' stocks.
So it's not just Nvidia alone out there, we got to remember. Who are some of their biggest competitors?
Yeah, I mean, some of the big competitors are really the names that you already know and love, or maybe don't love, I don't know. Intel and AMD. AMD is probably its biggest competitor, and it has been for years. They used to have they have a graphics card arm as well as a CPU arm. So they're basically fighting NVIDIA and Intel at the exact same time in different spaces. But the idea is that they have a new chip called the MI series, the MI300 series, and so they say that can compete with NVIDIA's chips. Intel has its Gaudi series, its Gaudi 3 chip, says it can compete with NVIDIA's chips, but they don't account for NVIDIA's new Blackwell chip. So Intel and AMD, they were focused on NVIDIA's Hopper series of chips, the H100, the H200. There's a lot of numbers and letters, but basically what it means is NVIDIA had a chip, everybody was gunning for it. Right. They got close or next to it, but then NVIDIA said, hold my beer, I'm going to go ahead and come out with an even better one. So these companies are trying. It's also their customers. Their customers are building chips now. Right. So Google, Microsoft wants to build it. They're not there. Amazon. So they're all trying to get into this to try to beat NVIDIA in some way.
Just lastly, we had mentioned the stock price over the past 52 weeks. How has NVIDIA actually been performing as of late? We think about this year to date and what investors should expect going forward.
Year to date, they're up 70%. Over the last 12 months, they're over 200%. They make everything else look like it's just standing still. Even Meta, which jumped massively after they announced that dividend and that share buyback plan, they went gangbusters. I think they went up 20% on the day when that was announced, but makes them look absolutely ridiculous. NVIDIA just absolutely dominating. And just quickly to put a point on how good they're doing as far as revenue goes. In their last quarter, they had $22.1 billion in revenue. That was up from $6.1 billion in the same quarter the prior year. And their full year revenue last year was $27 billion. So in last quarter, they nearly hit all of the revenue for the prior year. And we're expecting them to obviously have another bang out quarter. I think the problem comes when you start lapping this.
While some analysts are choosing to dismiss the competition completely, NVIDIA's Vice President of Applied Deep Learning Research, Brian Catanzaro, sees that competition is getting stronger, and while this statement certainly doesn't mean that NVIDIA is panicking, it isn't the first time that the company has acknowledged the efforts of its competitors. Outside of the AI domain, we have seen NVIDIA comment on AMD's Radeon GPU division and how they remain their prime competitor. They were even excited to see AMD compete with them. This means that NVIDIA might need to be more careful moving ahead, especially in terms of providing a superior set of market offerings, either taking the lead in the order supply or even competitive price-to-performance ratios. Right now, fresh competition is coming from companies both big and small, and the battle is expected to be fierce. In fact, the stakes are way bigger now. Think about it. Lisa Su, the CEO of Advanced Micro Devices, has said that the AI chip market will reach $400 billion by 2027. Likewise, Intel CEO Pat Gelsinger has also projected a $1 trillion opportunity by 2030. That's almost twice the size of the entire chip industry in 2023. So, what's it going to be for Nvidia? And how will it manage amid the competition? Let's get right into it. If you made it this far into the video, thank you. These videos take a lot of effort and time to make, so if you enjoyed them, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. This goes a long way in helping us grow. That said, back to the video.
Okay, let's get back to the markets. Tech's been under quite a bit of pressure. It seems like it started when we saw a change in outlook when it came to the Fed rate cuts. But I know you're watching one stock in particular that you now say is probably the most important one in the market. It's Nvidia. Technically in correction territory, still up about 70% year to date, but in correction territory and trading lower this morning. These moves in Nvidia, what does it say to you about the broader market?
Well, the market has been following Nvidia more or less. Remember, we were up 27% from late October until April 1st, driven by the AI march, and Nvidia is the leader of that march. Now with Nvidia weakening, and it grew to the third largest market capitalization company in the world, up to over 5% market cap, that's a sign that we're calming down the euphoria. I know it's been phenomenal for Nvidia. It still doesn't trade at a very hefty multiple, but you can't have just forward march without recognizing that the rest of artificial intelligence has not been one of profit making as it is for Nvidia. Nvidia sells the chips. Everyone else buys the chips. And for slowing down here of this stock, it's just a sign that the rest of the market has to regroup.
If you ask for my opinion, I'd say that I'm not too worried about Nvidia. One interesting thing that was previously highlighted by Catanzaro is the common misconception about Nvidia's journey and the company's transition from primarily hardware-centric to a software-centric firm. Having strong hardware means nothing if you don't have software capabilities that take advantage of the hardware, and Nvidia has a proven track record of harnessing a lot of juice out of its chips through software optimizations such as TensorRT, which was reported recently. Also, beyond raw performance, there are other factors to consider, one of which is that Nvidia has a strong lead in terms of software support, with features like DLSS being a major advantage. As for concerns over the competition, all the cloud providers that are currently making their own chips are still Nvidia customers and will continue to spend billions on its chips, with names like Amazon and Google lined up for its upcoming Blackwell architecture. Nvidia's new Blackwell products are ahead of the competition, who are still focused on taking down the H100, and there's still massive room to grow, according to Nvidia's long-term partner, TSM. TSM very recently reported impressive earnings and said that they forecast the revenue contribution from several AI processors to more than double this year, and also forecast that the AI processors market will grow at a compound annual growth rate of a massive 50% over the next 5 years. They also said that AI processors will make up 20% of the company's revenues by 2028, and since Nvidia's is one of TSM's closest partners and the market leader when it comes to AI processors, it's not too hard to figure out why TSM's forecasts are great news for Nvidia. Nvidia is also entering industries with positive future outlooks, like the humanoid robots industry and the healthcare industry. The humanoid robots market is expected to be worth $13.8 billion by 2028, while AI-powered healthcare is expected to be worth $173.5 billion by 2029, signaling great opportunities for Nvidia. Ives said that he expects the stock to go up when earnings are reported in May, as Nvidia expects a revenue of $24 billion for the quarter and an EPS of $5.52, a growth of 238% and 406% respectively. The truth is, the stock might go either way after earnings, even if Nvidia delivers amazing results, thanks to the market's conditions and everything else that could affect it, from the rate cuts to the rising tensions in the Middle East. So, Nvidia stock is definitely a great investment opportunity for those willing to hold despite the current volatility, as once all of the macro issues clear up, Nvidia stock could definitely rise again. But what are your thoughts though? Do you think Nvidia stock is currently a buy or a sell? Let us know in the comments section. If you would like to know more about the latest updates about Nvidia and what it's been up to, then go ahead and click on the next video on your screen. See you there.